Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, our WhyTry webinar today. I'm very excited for what we've got. This is a topic that we've been circling for quite a while, and everywhere I go throughout the country, I have people that are interested in this topic. I think it's very timely. I think it's got some really important use. And oh, nice. Okay, Jen, stay. I just got a note sent directly to me. Jen, stay in contact with me because I can get you in contact with some really good people, some experts. I'm excited. The topic today we're gonna be digging into is restorative practices, and I'm particularly excited because I've got two experts with me on here that I think I'm comfortable saying I find them to be both friends and kindred spirits. It's been really fun collaborating on this with our two panelists. So before I officially introduce everything, let me just go over a couple of logistical items for all of you that are in attendance. We're gonna plan on going for about an hour today. Sometimes that carries over just a little bit, depending on the nature of the discussion that we're having. And this will be a live webinar. We've got a live chat. So my name's Jason Johnson. I represent the WhyTry organization. We are the organization that hosts these webinars. I've been doing these since early 2020. I've got about 80 of them that I've completed now. And it's one of my very favorite things that I get to do. I get to collaborate with incredible experts and I get to collaborate around really important topics. And it's been really fun. And in the process, there's formed a really nice community. Many of you keep showing up to these as live attendees, and thank you so much for coming back. Welcome to anybody that this may be their first experience with one of our webinars. So what we do, I will hold a live panel discussion with our experts, and we'll talk about some information that I think is really relevant to any educator or mental health professional, individuals working in corrections, etc. One note on the format of the webinar. So we are on a webinar link, meaning that the three of us that are panelists are the only ones that have a live camera and a live microphone. I can't see and hear the rest of you. So we lean on our chat quite a bit. And so feel free to use the chat if you have questions, comments on what we're talking about. One thing that helps with the chat, if you will open up your chat box where you type in a message in the chat, it's helpful if you adjust your settings so that you're sharing comments with everyone. So the way you make sure that's adjusted properly is open up your chat box, and right in where you would type a message, right above that it says to, and then there's a little drop down arrow where you can select who you're sharing your message with. Make sure that is adjusted so that you're sharing comments with everyone. Adjust that to everyone. That'll make it so everyone can see your comment. After you have made that adjustment, let's just do a quick check. Go ahead and type an emoji into the chat box right now that expresses how your week is going so far. So hit us in the chat with an emoji that shares how your week is going so far. We're seeing a little bit of everything. I love it. It's so good. So I just like looking through the emojis, I think I can tell those that are either just about to start spring break or just on their spring break. Those ones have a little bit more relaxed emoji. You're doing it. The ones that haven't had it yet, you got a little bit more stressful. I love it. Okay, thank you everybody. That's helpful. That's fun. Okay, let me introduce our topic and then I'll introduce our panelists and then we'll get into it. So, as I mentioned, today we are going to be discussing restorative practices in action and talk about some strategies to build stronger relationships and more resilient classrooms. And I couldn't be happier about this panel that we've got together of experts today. Let me introduce them here one at a time. First, we've got Scott McMullen. Scott has over 30 years of experience as a teacher and administrator. He's the director of the Scope Alternative Education Program in St. Louis, Missouri. He's dedicated his career to building therapeutic school cultures that equip students with self-regulation, coping, and self-efficacy skills for lifelong success. Welcome, Scott. So happy to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
And then next we have Gerald Robinson. Gerald is the Restorative Practice Coordinator at Doral Academy of Nevada and President of Creative Restorative Practices Services. He's a licensed social worker with a background in child welfare. Gerald has spent decades training and implementing restorative strategies to support student growth and well-being with a very, very rich career in education, kind of in all areas of education, all the way into coaching as well. Welcome, Gerald. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Jason. Excited to be here today.
And then myself, as I mentioned, my name is Jason Johnson. I am the Director of Training and Research for the WhyTry organization. My background is I come from the world of public ed, where I worked as a school psychologist. I had research that I did on the topic of resilience that I was able to get published. And I currently get to go around and train on the WhyTry approach to teaching and building the skills of resilience. And I should mention that I have had both Gerald and Scott on previous webinars as panelists, and so it's always fun to have friends come back. And as I mentioned, in this case, I'm really excited for what they're going to share because this is a topic that I continue to get questions about, and I continue to get interest in. So with that, let's just jump right into it. We're going to today explore the concept of restorative practices, what it is, a little bit of how it works in practice, and the benefits it offers. So I was wondering if maybe we could just start with a brief overview. Um, Maybe have both of you kind of describe, in your opinion, what restorative practices is, what its purpose is, and feel free to fill in any blanks that I may have missed on my introduction for yourself as well. Let's start with Scott and then hear from Gerald.
So when I think of restorative practices, I think of a number of different things right off the bat. You want to be able to allow students to remain in school or in the classroom without being a disruption, but also that they're able to be engaged. I also think that it should be systematic, goal-specific focus, collaborative in nature, consistent, clearly communicated, and also teaching students skills to be able to cope with whatever challenges that they may face and preventing them from being successful.
Love it. Gerald.
Absolutely. I agree with Scott. Restorative practices, in my opinion, when I think about it, it's about building relationships. It's about not only building relationships with your students, it's about building relationships with ourselves, the people that are in the building. And, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. And so restorative practices gives us all an opportunity to make it right. We want to be able to teach our students those skills to be able to repair the harm if they committed harm and be able to meet the needs for those students that experienced harm. So, when you think about it, we want to be able to prevent what we call disproportionality with students. When you have students that are African American, Latinx, LGBTQ, student with special needs, a lot of districts are at a higher risk. Those students are at a higher risk of being either suspended or expelled. And we want to be able to prevent that. As Scott mentioned, we want to keep them in the school. I mean, if they're in our desk and they're in our classrooms, we know that they're safe. We know that they're learning. and we're teaching them skills to be able to make it right if something goes wrong. And so my final statement is we got to prevent that school to prison pipeline. It's up to us to be able to close that pipeline up because we got to keep our kids in school.
I love it. One of the things that's I've always appreciated the most, and this is, I suppose, in part the school psych in me speaking, but in my home state, where I worked as a school psych, the district that I was in, the psychs, part of our role was we were supposed to be the behavior experts in the school. So we were writing behavior plans, et cetera. And when it comes to behavior, it's some of the challenges you have is like number one, you're trying to adjust and improve behavior and then prevent particularly dangerous and unhealthy behavior. But number two, you're also trying to figure out like where change lies in the model. So, there's lots of interventions that can adjust behavior or impact behavior, but they don't necessarily impact change, right? So I can get a student to stop doing a thing, but did that student actually change to the point that they don't want to do the thing in the future? And one of the things I love about the restorative practices model is I really feel like it has a great ability to impact change to the person in addition to the behavior that you're trying to adjust or modify as well. So I'm really excited. Typically in these webinars, I do kind of like a question panel based, but with our experts today, I really want to give them space to share in a little more detail than what we normally get. So I want to set them up today and then kind of get out of their way. I've asked them both to give kind of a brief presentation on what their journey with restorative practices has been and how they've used it, what it's looked like in their implementation, as well as what the impact has been from it. And then we'll be happy to take some questions after we hear from our panelists. And then I've got a couple more questions where we'll have some strategies at the end that we'll share as well that I think anybody can apply from the model, even if they're not doing like a full fidelity implementation of the restorative practices model. So let's just jump into it. Let's hear first from Gerald. Gerald, if you can tell us about your journey with this, and then after we hear from Gerald, we'll throw to Scott for yours.
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind, and just have a couple of slides here I'd like to be able to share, and I hope you're able to see those. All right, everybody good? Give me a thumbs up with my panelists.
Yep,
We're okay?
yep, I
Awesome,
can see it.
awesome, awesome. Well, I wanted to start out, first of all, I want to say thank you, Jason. I mean, WhyTry, to be able to collaborate with you guys is amazing. I want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to be able to come and share our restorative practices framework with everyone on the call today. Very, very excited to be here. As Jason mentioned earlier, I am a restorative practices practitioner, is what I would call myself, for over 14 years. Excited to do this work. When I first started and learned about this concept many, many years ago when I was a school social worker at a high school, we went to a ton of trainings. And even after I left that position, I continued to go to trainings and learn about it, did my own research. I still did not receive all of the information that I needed in order to implement a framework with fidelity. And so over the years, I continued to mainly learn and collect information, valuable information that actually helped me, in my opinion, create what we call a master plan that outlines the initial steps from step one all the way to the final steps of that evaluation phase for restorative practices. And that's what I want to show you today. I'm going to click through my slides. I don't have a whole lot of time. So you're going to see the objectives for a curriculum, a framework that I created over the years and shared it with several schools. There are 10 modules. There are going to be objectives that come up, and I don't have a whole lot of time to go through each and every one of them, but I did want to share them with you today. And mainly, I'm going to start out with module number one. Module number one. So module number one deals with when you want to get this information in front of your decision makers. This is a training for administrators. the people in the building, like your superintendents that are over districts, your directors, your administration, school principals, your school leadership teams. It's important that you get their buy-in. If you don't get the leadership buy-in, you're going to struggle and you're going to have some challenges. So these are some of the objectives that we talk about in this training when we are in front of the administrators. And we generally start out with what we call a 3 to 5 year vision plan. And the three objectives that you see really talk about a lot of the concepts that administrators should be aware of. So here's a couple of pictures of a school that we were very, very fortunate to contract with when we started our company, Creative Restorative Practices. And I am the Restorative Practice Coordinator for the Durrell Academy, Durrell Charter School of Nevada. And it's exciting to be able to say that when we first started, we met with one principal in that particular umbrella, and that principal sat down and said, you know what, we need help. Tell us what restorative practices is. So I got a chance to roll out a vision plan with her. She said, you know what, let's get started. So within a year, we started to see a reduction in behavioral events. And she shared this information with her director, who is over 5 other schools under the Durrell Academy of Nevada. There's 5 other schools, 5 other charter schools. And he said, you know, listen, let me sit down and talk about how are you having all this success? And so he met with us and signed on and said, we want to have all of our other 6 schools participate in this as well. So we started to work with several elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school, and they agreed to utilize the framework. So our very second module is when you get the staff in the building in front of the information. One of the things that we know is that when you introduce this to some, they might already be aware of it. But now you're also going to introduce it to some that may not be aware of it. So these objectives that you see on the screen today, it kind of covers everything that we want someone that's aware and someone that's not aware about how we can move forward with implementing this. So what we did is we wanted to be able to highlight a few of these objectives. MTSS is a tiered approach. We follow a tiered approach when we look at restorative practices as well. WhyTry is a big piece of what we do, and you're going to hear a little bit about that in just a second. A lot of those interventions that WhyTry provides, we continue to utilize those throughout our framework. Also, at the end of this training, we also want our staff to be able to walk away with something that they can use, proactive relationship builders. They can use this in their classrooms right away after this training. And so here's a couple of pictures of a few people that participated in some of our trainings. This is a staff. As you can see, some of them are in circles, some of them are sitting down. We'll talk about that in just a second. But if you can get 50% of the staff in the building on board, that's half the battle, because the other 50% will follow once they start to see and feel the success. How do we collect that information? At the awareness training in this module 2, we do what we call a pre and post survey. At the beginning, we survey what they know. At the end, we do a post survey, and it helps us to measure buy-in. And so when you look at module 3 is designed to create a team. You're going to need a restorative practices team. And when we present module 2, this is how you create the team. A part of that 50%, they're knocking on the principal's door saying, hey, how can I join this team? I love this information. And so we get them started. And usually the team is made up of a social worker, if you have one in the building, maybe your counselor that's in the building, 3 to 5 teachers, as well as a student representative and a parent. And you have an admin that's going to kind of oversee the process. So we talk about everything we need to know in module 3 and teach them how to be a restorative practice team member. And so here's a couple of team members. It's great to work with these individuals. They mentor the staff that are in the building. They go through specific trainings with myself as the restorative practices coordinator. We meet regularly on a monthly basis. We talk about the data that we're seeing. And we also go on retreats because we got to keep our relationship strong. They learn about their roles and responsibilities when we meet in these particular meetings. These are just a couple of teams that I've worked with over the past few years, and it's exciting to be able to share the excitement that we're having with our implementation. And so module number 4 is basically a relationship building module. What we're talking about now is tier 1. We're talking about tier 1. That's where you want to start. This is where teachers can learn how to strengthen and build relationships with students using these interventions. And as I mentioned, we use a tiered approach with MTSS, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. In addition, the modules look at the data on a consistent basis. What should we be collecting? What should we be monitoring? And our restorative practices team looks at that. This is the module where the team comes up front and they are able to introduce themselves again, and people in the building can say, oh, I didn't know you were a part of the team. So it's actually really cool to be able to show that. The members on that team, they hosted the circles that you see on the screen now. They're the ones that facilitated these particular circles. We'll talk about that. But one of the things I want everybody to understand, we have to start with ourselves. If we don't build relationships with each other in the building, well, how are we going to teach our students to do it? So we got to start with ourselves. So that's one of the steps that we do in tier 1. And you can see that our staff here is excited to be able to build and strengthen those relationships with each other. And now they're able to do it with students. Module number 5 is circle training. Now we're able to teach our staff how to perform circles because there's an ingredient to it. Circles are the cornerstone of restorative practices. And I'm going to share a little bit of information here because I want you to truly understand that when you're facilitating circles, you're not instructing, you're facilitating. And the benefits of circles is, here's that word again, we're going to build relationships with each other. We're going to get to know each other in a circle. Talking pieces are used. It should be an item that's important to you as a facilitator. Share why it's important. You want to pass that around, and anyone that has that talking piece is the person that is talking. It helps you continue to keep the structure of the circle going. They can pass if they want to. And again, why circles? It's to build relationships. They break that monotony of just teaching and instructing. It's exciting that when students get in the circle, they're like, how can we do more of this? A couple of types of circles that I'd like to share with you today are, you can have what we call sequential circles. You can have non-sequential circles. That's when sequential is when you're going around in order in a clockwise. Sequential is when you break it up. People can raise their hands and address the questions. There are check-in circles. There are getting to know you circles. We even have what we call harm circles. We have content circles for teachers. Also reintegration circles that our administrators can utilize as well. And these are just a couple of pictures of circles that are occurring on our campus at Gerald Academy, and excited to be able to train them to do that. Now, if you're going to do a circle, don't worry about the furniture. You can stand around it. You know, it's something about the magic when you are in a circle. So if you're able to move the furniture, great. If not, just stand around it and instruct the circle in that way. So it's exciting to be able to move forward and talk about circles and why they are important. Module number 6 is where harm has happened. We're building relationships with the connection circles, but when harm is happening on our campus, we got to do something about it. It's our fault. We don't teach our students how not to prevent harm from happening. So we have what we call a tribunal process as well as a harm circle process. This particular module talks about our framework where harm is happening. We want to be able to service the person that committed the harm as well as meet the needs of the people who experienced the harm. But you got to be trained in this process. And we want our staff to understand that tier 1 has to take place. We got to make sure we exhaust all of those interventions. And so it's exciting to know that we have a resolution conference where we meet with the teacher who may have referred those students to us and give them an idea of what happened and how we repaired the harm. And so it's really exciting to know that these young ladies here are part of what we call our tier 2 team. I'm the restorative practice coordinator, and our middle school counselor is a part of the team, as well as our mental health professional who is over the elementary portion. We are the ones who coordinate those circles in the building, and they have been trained. They know how to do it. And guess what? I was excited when we were able to get them trained in WhyTry, because as I mentioned, WhyTry is a big piece of what we do. Whenever we do a circle, a harm circle, we utilize different lessons like the labeling lesson, even defense mechanisms is popular, the reality ride. These are interventions that we use to help repair the harm. And so it's really cool to be able to do that. And your principal and your administration can decide how that team looks. Module number 7 is for administrators. We sit them down and talk about, this issue that occurred is very serious. It's above the tier 2 team. So our tier 3 team is the administration. they sit down, and when they receive what we call a behavior support request, some people might know it as a referral, they address that issue. The good thing is they know about restorative practices because when they complete what we call a restorative plan of action, it is a document that the student agrees to follow, the parent signs off. WhyTry is listed, and that student has to complete all 10 lessons. And then they're able to say, you know what, additional interventions that take place, they're going to be in our 10-week program to learn some tools. So we're excited to be able to share that with you as well. I'm going to move forward. Here are our administrators from one of the schools. They're excited to be able to create those documents that I mentioned earlier, and they're bought into WhyTry. You're going to hear why in just a second, because they came to me and they were like, listen, what can we do more with this WhyTry component? And so module number 8 is a student peer group. Volunteer peer mediator staff training. Our 2 young ladies and myself, we actually, I taught them and trained them how to train students. And these are the objectives that we train the tier 2 team to follow when they're training students. Before the students go through the information, they go through this information. And the ladies here, they understand that we want to pick leaders in the building. So we want to start with maybe a leadership group that you have created, maybe a student council. These are individuals who will be great candidates for a volunteer peer mediator mentor on campus. And so it's exciting that these objectives are the objectives that they follow. Here are a couple of groups that actually became, we call them VPMs, and they're excited to be a part of the program. This is a leadership class. These individuals, these students, they actually participate in HORM circles and tribunal circles. So it's exciting to know that a student voice is needed. These are the objectives for the students when they go through the training. So we're training them. This is actually a 2-day training that takes place. It's really exciting to know that once they graduate through this program, they're excited to go out in the community now. We've gotten requests from our State Board of Education here in town, and they've went to different schools over the years, and they model the framework in front of other educators. So it's really cool to get a student voice involved. And module number 9 is what we call our classroom lessons. When I was thinking about developing this framework, I said to myself, who is telling the student body about restorative practices? So we said, you know what, let's do class lessons. So we created an elementary, middle school, and high school lesson, and that the students go through this, and then it's very interactive. It's exciting that they learn about restorative practices in a creative way. We utilize the Kagan strategy to be able to teach them some of the interventions. Once they go through this particular training, they know that their school is a restorative school. And it's exciting that they are really energetic when they're going through these particular lessons. And so here's a creation that we just started last year. I was telling a story about this the other day, I believe, to Bruce, who I was speaking to from WhyTry. And I was fortunate enough to be a guest speaker at a sports banquet at a high school several years ago. And I was trying to think of a topic. And I was just trained on WhyTry maybe a year or so after. I used the motivation formula with this particular speech. It was really cool because you had 200 athletes in the room. I put up a picture of myself when I was little. I had went through some challenges and shared that with them growing up. And then I put up a picture of me with my football uniform on from the college that I attended. And it was exciting to say that, listen, everybody has a motivation formula. Even you on the call have one. You might start with some challenges, but you're going to go through that channel and get to the end, and your light's going to come on. And so it was really exciting that I shared that story with my principal, and she said, how can we do some assemblies like this? And so she went ahead and said, let's coordinate some assemblies with WhyTry. So we did a labeling assembly and a defense mechanism assembly the last couple of years, and we're thinking about the topic for next year. So it's exciting to be able to do that. Parents have to get in front of the information. Whenever you have them on your campus, you got to get them in front of the information. This is the training that they go through. You want your parents to be able to sit through a circle in this training. They're excited to be able to share with their students that, hey, I know what you're talking about. I know why you're excited coming home telling me about these circles. But they then understand the concept that their students are attending a restorative school and what we do. And so this is the training that they go through. They have a really good time going through the training. I'm very, very excited to be able to introduce this to parents, because when we talk to them and they now know that we're equipping their students with skills on how to repair harm. And so it's exciting. Finally, Our module 10 is collecting data, different areas of data. You must review and collect all of your data when you're looking at this framework. So we want our teachers to know that their hard work is paying off. We gotta make sure that we show how fidelity is happening in our framework. So we survey students, we survey staff members, we survey parents throughout the year. We actually count the total number of circles that happen in every classroom. And we're right at about 4,000 this year. It's exciting to know that relationships are being built. And students even tell us, hey, you know what? This is what we need to make better. This is what we need to keep. This is what we need to change for next year. So finally, my final slide is, here's a sample of how we show the data. We put up a graph, some bar graphs or some charts, pie charts, and we let our staff know, hey, this is what was happening. From year to year, at the end of the year, we put up the previous years. And so it's exciting to know that they're bought in right now. And we're just having a lot of momentum, especially during these times. So at this time, I want to turn it back over to Jason. I hope my time was met within the required time limit. And my
It was
man Scott,
perfect.
I hope I didn't go into your time schedule, my man. Thank you
Well,
so
that's
much,
okay. I'll
everybody, for
steal some of
listening.
your ideas, so it's
You
fine.
got it. You got it.
Hey, Gerald, I've got a couple follow-up questions for you, real quick. Number one, so just to clarify then, do you have everybody in your schools, is every student and every teacher in a circle then, at least one?
Yes. Yes. Here's how we do it. When we get the staff members at a staff training, we have staff meetings. Our principal coordinate those every Wednesday. No matter what we do our best to start out with a circle. So the students aren't there with us yet. However, our teachers know that this is important to us. So when they go back to their classrooms, they receive what we call a connection circle data sheet. So they have to actually report to myself how many circles they did in one given week, every week. So they're doing circles in their classrooms with the students. And so it's you brought up a point because we have a teacher student mentor program that I didn't mention in this particular presentation, but that's when we brought the mentees and the mentor in a circle together at we call it our navigator mentor program. And it was exciting to see those students have circles with their actual mentor. So we do various different types of circles. So I hope I answered the question, and we're
Yeah,
just excited. It's working for us.
I love it. And I hope people are capturing the vision of what can happen from this, because in education, we always, one of the struggles in education is always those students that will use the term like fall through the cracks. And those are those students that they're harder to get a hold of. We know that they probably aren't feeling any great connection to anything or anyone within the building. And those are students we really worry about. But we also know that there's educators that fall through the cracks as well, right? And so you've really, like, this is the gold standard of anything that I've seen. When you have a model where every student and every educator is part of one or multiple circles, you're really ensuring that there is a real foundation for everybody to feel part of a community, because each of those circles becomes a little mini community, and then it prepares you to engage with the broader community at large that you're part of. So it's really brilliant, and I don't use the term lightly. And then the other thing, just to throw clarity behind, if anybody was wondering about the kind of the interaction between your circles and WhyTry. So you have different purposes behind the different circles. And one of the circles is specifically to repair harm, which in many cases requires an adjustment in behavior, a modification of behavior. And so you're using the WhyTry toolkit that teaches skills of resilience as part of some specific circles, specifically on that reparative side, as the intervention in conjunction with the stated purpose of that circle, correct?
Yes, sir. Just real quick, I'll tell you exactly what that looks like. For an example, you have a fight on campus. Two students actually got into a physical fight. And so, well, Our administration had to make a decision. They had to go home for a couple of days because it was a progressive issue. Well, when they came back, we reintegrated them back into the school. Well, we had to repair the harm. We couldn't just send them back to class, right? So they do a harm circle with us. When it's a serious offense like that, like a physical fight, guess what model we use? Our lesson we use from WhyTry is defense mechanisms. It's clear that you were disrespected. We talk about what if somebody laughs at you? Are you going to hit them? What if, somebody hits you? How are you going to respond? So we talk about how you have to put your shield on. I'm not going to do the lesson, but we go through that lesson with those two individuals. And we give them a copy and we tell them to go home and talk to their parents about it. And we document that these particular students received a defense mechanism from the WhyTry program, and their parents are aware of it, and we provided them with a tool. Now, there are some additional steps that they have to do too, like apologize to each other, apologize to the students who maybe witnessed the fight. There's some other components, but it's just ideal for what we do. And I started doing this, man, this was probably over 8 or 9 years ago with the high school level students when I was at a high school at our local district here as a social worker. That's when I started this particular concept, but it's brilliant in other schools at every level.
So for your final 30 seconds, Gerald, because I know you're a data guy, share the numbers. What's been the change in number of reported behavior issues from the time you began doing this to where you're at now?
Absolutely. When I first came on campus over at Gerald Academy for the one school, my principal, she shared with me, and as a matter of fact, we did a presentation at a conference, and I had never heard her say this before. And we were in a room of 600 people, and she said, I was almost done. I was almost done because I was so frustrated with dealing with the behavior issues that we were experiencing. And now that we brought in restorative practices, I now have that fire again. And so our numbers were really high. We're this particular school now, I can't speak for the other 6. I can only the other 5. I'll speak for the Gerald Academy charter, the Saddle campus. It was probably over, we have a population of over 1,000 kids, over 200 behavioral referrals. Right now, we're running at around 50. We dropped it down, and each year we're going to get better and better and better. Our goal is to get to 0, and that's why we continue to work at it. We're not
200
perfect,
to
and we learn
50.
each year as well. So I'll let you take over from there, Jason.
200 to 50 is awesome. I'm going to put Gerald's contact info up at the end, but just for now, I'm going to throw your organization's link in the chat there. Anybody can take a look at, because he's got some training opportunities coming up. Some of you may be interested in. Scott, I'm so excited to hear about your journey, your experience with restorative practices now. What have you got?
Yes, yes. Gerald, thanks again for sharing. That's very impressive what you and your staff and your students have done. So good job. Congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Can everyone see my screen? Is that...
No, I'm not seeing it, Scott. There
How's
it
that?
is.
Okay,
There we go,
perfect.
Scott.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about restorative discipline, the objective is to ensure that students are in school. And I mentioned earlier what those characteristics look like as far as being systematic, goal-specific, collaborative, consistent, clearly communicated, and SEL behavior intervention resources for our staff and PD in those areas. Most of the schools so I work at an alternative high school. This is my 14th year being an alternative school principal. I was at a previous school district before, so I've been able to lead change in 2 different schools. My first 6 years was at an alternative school in a more rural setting, or a community around 40,000 people. And now I am the director the past 8 years of an alternative school in St. Louis. And I have a lot of practice as far as trying to change the behavior and the culture in our building. My current situation is, when I first took over at my current job at Scope, we averaged about 400 referrals per year. In those numbers, we averaged around 11 fights per year over a 5-year period each year. We also averaged 16 bullying incidences. As you can tell from our graph, this is where we started, close to 400, around 365. And look at how that decreased over time. And I do 3-year snapshots on my data. So 2014 through 17, this is the average over those 3 years each year. And then as you notice, we went from 365 to 2017 to 2020, we went to around 150. And then the next 3 years, we averaged around 35. This year, we've only had 9 disciplinary referrals. We have not had a fight in 6 years. We have not had any incidences of bullying in years. We service around 200 kids a year. So that gives you an idea of what work my staff has put into being able to establish positive relationships and teaching students self-efficacy so that they feel better about themselves, therefore better about their classmates and being engaged in the educational process. So this is my past 8 years, but I really was able to cut my teeth on restorative practices in my first principalship. The school that I worked or served had around 165 students, very high presence of gangs, also family feuds as well. Most of the students are referred to our schools are either from fights, assaults, school threats, or drugs. So all of these students that I've worked with in both educational settings have been referred based on those things. As you can tell, my first year, we all had almost 1,400 referrals per year. And what I did when I first took over as principalship of the alt school at the rural school district, I went in and looked at the average 5 years of data, and there were over 1,400 referrals per year. So my staff and I, before my first year, did PBIS training, and this is a high school setting. So it put a little bit of a dent in our discipline. We went from around 1,400 to around 1,250, but it still didn't move the needle enough. And so we wanted to analyze what we could do better. And so our building goal was that we wanted to decrease our discipline referrals and suspensions by 20%. And so after my first year, I met with my superintendent, and we found out in previous years that our school district had over 2,000 students' absences based on long-term suspensions. And this also resulted in our school losing over $100,000 annually in school resources because these students weren't in school. And so we wanted to look for another SEL component to help decrease the discipline in our building. And so that's led us to what I learned. Some of the best PD I had was in moral reasoning training. And I'm going to expand a little bit about this behavior intervention model that I've used because that helped reduce our referrals. So after my first year, we went from 1,250 to around 850. But notice after year 3, from year 3 to 4, we went from around 850 to 275. At the school I took over, or my first school, there were fights, verbal, physical altercations every day. The culture in the school was very negative. Teacher morale was down. But over the course of these years of after year 3 and implementing moral reasoning training, our student and academic achievement increased. Our graduation rates improved by 17%. Our student attendance went from 83% to 90%. But most importantly, we had maybe 1 fight per year, and the bullying incidences went down, and there were no incidences of that at all. So a little bit about the moral reasoning. Before we got into moral reasoning, one of the things we wanted to talk about as a staff was to create a behavior flow chart. And so this is where the collaboration piece came into it, because we analyzed our behavior data and our staff came up with this flow chart of, okay, what's going to be off, what is going to be managed in the classroom? What are some of the minor offenses that teachers should be able to establish and that I need to not be involved in because I don't want to, undermine the authority of my teachers. And so these are some of the things that we came up with before students were to receive a referral or any type of formal discipline. So this is classroom regulated. But then we also had examples of things that had to be managed by the office. And then some of the next steps. Obviously, we talked about revisiting our norms, our student and building expectations. But then when we came up with the consequences piece, we use WhyTry, and we also use moral reasoning. And so those were the interventions that we used before we got to the suspension piece. And so moral reasoning training. I hope I don't go too quickly. If I do, we can always revisit. So moral reasoning training is a sequence of 12 interactive lessons. It can be used as a restorative practice or a preventative practice. It focuses on self-reflection, goal setting. Before you do an activity in Reading Plus, you would receive do like a small reading passage, and we would usually do that in small groups, either partner reading or round robin reading, and then we would have a discussion after each paragraph, and it would reflect on what focus or what that behavioral focus for that lesson would be. And so after we did the reading passage, it was followed up with an artistic expression. So it's an art activity in which they would draw what caused them to get in trouble, what were the precursors to that behavior. And then they would use that art expression activity as a graphic organizer, and they would write a brief summary on their behavior and reflect on what caused the behavior, what ownership they had in that situation, and replacing the negative behaviors with positive ones. Here's an example of a lesson. This is the first lesson. The lesson focuses on being honest about your behaviors, taking accountability for what you did to get yourself in trouble or long-term suspended. And so in this situation, this student sold drugs to a classmate while her teacher was teaching. The student ended up taking the drugs, had an allergic reaction. Emergency rescue personnel had to come to the building and resuscitate the student. The student had to go to the hospital, spend the night, overnight in the hospital because of this student's action. And so the first step we talked about was, well, what behaviors did you engage in to get you to the situation of selling drugs in class? And she talked about how she met this guy and she started dating him steadily, and he ended up getting her involved in drugs. She developed an addiction. So to support their habits, she set up a network of drug trafficking within the school bathrooms or also in the classroom. So then we talked about, okay, well, 3 to 6 months, what led you to this situation where you're so dependent on drugs that you had to start selling it? And she said, well, I met this guy. We started dating. He was really involved in drugs. And so that's where it really kind of started. And then I was like, well, before then, 6 to 12 months ago, what led you to here and what led you to here? And she said that she stopped doing things with her family. You notice she's frowning in this picture. This is a picture of her dad asking her to go do family things. She's deciding not to because she was starting to, hang out with the wrong crowd. So then we go back to the pyramid of the present of what could have been. So instead of dating this guy exclusively, what could you have done differently? And so she, in her drawing, said, I should not have dated him at all or dated him exclusively at all. And then 3 to 6 months ago, what did you do? And she talked about how she should have just walked away instead of dating him. And then in this pyramid, 6 to 12 months ago, what should you have done? And she said, well, I should have continued doing things with my family because it was positive interactions and it also was healthier for me. So just in this incident alone, she damaged a lot of relationships. In the reading passage, it focuses on you can't blame others. So you can't blame the student who took the drugs and had the reaction. You can't blame the teacher for turning his back on what was going on. You are the only person that you need to focus on. What could you have done differently, not everyone else? So it created a high level of honesty, accountability, and reflection. She also destroyed relationships because her parents found out about this situation. The counselor who was on the scene when the student had the allergic reaction was friends with her family. Her high school principal was also friends with the family. The school resource officer who arrested her was also friends with her family. So she damaged a lot of relationships in this one incident. And one of the things about MRT is it allows you to repair those damaged relationships. So another lesson, a follow-up lesson to the pyramid of the present is the relationship piece. Who did you harm in this relationship? And she talked about her dad. How did you damage it? betraying his trust, selling drugs, partying all the time. What is your goal in this relationship? To gain his trust back. How can you do this? And then she talked about how being honest with him, writing an apology letter to him, and then changing her behavior. And then the first thing that you should do, apologize, take ownership. And then when will you do this? And then she did that as soon as possible. So in the lesson on the relationships, it had 5 different relationships that a student had to complete and how they were going to repair it. So throughout these lessons, and there's 12, at the end of each lesson, a student would do their graphic organizer. So they would do the pyramid of the present. This is a sample of the lesson. Then they would write out a summary. So their summary would be, okay, I'm in MRT because I sold drugs in class. This is what led me to it. And so after they've written out a summary of what they did, they had to do a testimonial in front of small groups or their student support circle. And it's usually 6 to 8 other students who also were long-term suspended and had gotten into a lot of trouble. And so one student could be in a circle for the drugs. We had another student in her circle that it was for fighting. Another was for class disruption and anger management. And so each student would do their testimonial in front of their circle, their accountability circle. And then at the end of their presentation, they would leave the room. And then myself and the rest of the group members in that, circle of support would discuss whether that student was being honest or not. If we saw improvements in their behavior in the classroom or school setting. And once we felt that they met the criteria, we had that student come back in, we told them they had passed, we congratulated them. And then the real learning took place is during those restorative circles when they start having discussions about that student's incident. And then you would have a student who had the anger management issues talk about, well, yes, this is what happened to me. And these are some of the triggers to my behavior. And these are some of the positive behaviors that would allow us to be more successful. So that was really where a lot of the growth took place. And each component of MRT focuses on those types of things. So last, I am going to share So this is a student who actually went through the moral reasoning program. I keep in touch with my students years after they graduated. I just think relationships should be authentic. They should be long lasting. Anytime I go back to my hometown where my first principalship was at, I'll run into students and they will talk about some of the things that they're doing in life. And this one young man in particular was probably one of my most challenging pupils. And I'll let you hear what he has to say about his experience with moral reasoning. Hopefully. Sorry. Have some tech issues here. Sorry about that.
Give it just a sec. There it goes.
Oh, there it is.
Feel like that MRT helped me in 3 different ways. There were other things I was going through other than just smoking marijuana. The first thing with marijuana, it helped me understand that you don't have to do drugs to feel comfortable with yourself. There's always going to be somebody there that's going to help you and understand, that's going to be willing to talk to you. I also went through a problem of fighting a lot at school. I had anger problems, so MRT actually helped me to cope with my anger whenever something didn't go my way or anything like that. MRT really helped me understand that anger is not the way to do things. It's always another thing to do. And also, it helped me learn that I need to make sure I pay attention to the company that I kept around me. A lot of my friends that I thought were my friends were not my friends. MRT helped me understand that. MRT helped me understand that your true friends that never lead you to do anything wrong. They will always have your back. They will never influence you to do anything wrong. And MRT showed me that from the very beginning when I stepped through there. The people that I met, I knew them growing up, but I didn't know them personally. And MRT helped me realize that people go through things all the time, and sometimes they don't know how to express what they're going through, but it'll always be somebody there to listen to you. And that was probably like the number one thing that I appreciate out of MRT, because it helped me during school and it also helped me outside of school. Because once I got out of school, I kind of fell back into my bad ways as a teen. And once I started getting in trouble more, I got to thinking about what MRT taught me. And once I did that, I actually was able to separate myself and put myself around good people. So I would definitely say that from doing MRT in high school, it definitely took me a long way to where I am now. And I'm very appreciative of what MRT did for me. And I hope that they put this in other schools to help other kids also.
So this young man went from, doing things illegally. If you notice in the backdrop, this was this young man at the age of 23. He owns his own barbershop. He doesn't have a partner or anything. So he was able to allow us to film that interview in his barbershop. And this was 5 years after he graduated high school. And he talks about the impact of how MRT focused on changing the circle of people that you were around, being around people who were more positive. He was a leader of a local gang. The other two founding members who he was best friends with at the time are still in prison. He was able to break away from that and be around more positive people. And when he talked about people he was talking to, he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the other people in his MRT group that shared similar, they didn't have, fighting issues, but they had other struggles, whether it was drug trafficking or, anger management, but they all had some commonality in they had to change their behavior. Their behavior was impacting the learning of others. And it's just really, really powerful. And I'm going to share one more. I hope I have time, and then.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Let's take a second for this to load.
Hit play again. It just takes a second, I think.
Okay.
Well, I thought.
Was because back in 7th grade, I had 31 discipline referrals. I got into many fights, and I just thought that, I was hanging around the wrong crowd of people, and I thought that I was untouchable, unstoppable, and I just thought that I could do what I want, when I want, and didn't have to answer nobody. And when I first started MRT, I thought, this is going to be a waste of my time, and that why am I getting put through this when they ain't going to help me? Well, MRT actually let me set goals for myself that I knew that didn't think was going to be attainable then, but it let me know that, yes, I can do whatever I want. If I set a goal for it, I set a goal for graduating high school, which I did. I set a goal for me having a great job, which I have. And I had great mentors and great students and great teachers along the way that helped me through it. I had a couple hiccups when I was with it, but I learned to overcome those goals. And I think that's what making me a better person than I am today. And I hope and pray that they put this program in the schools, because not only is it's not mainly for drug or alcohol abuse or stuff like that. It could be for troubled teens that has fighting problems, anger management problems, or problems along those lines. Because all it takes is somebody to listen to you, and that's exactly what I thought. There was nobody that was listening to me or anything. But when I got put through this program, and it showed me that, yes, there's people out here that will help you. You don't think that they will. And I just think this program was really good, and I hope that it gets put in the schools.
That's incredible, Scott.
Thank you. It's been a great situation. That young man also, like I said, this video was taken 5 years ago after they've completed high school. Well, right now, this has been another 2020, so 5 years later, I still hear from them. The one young man still has his barbershop, is thriving. The second young man owns his own landscaping company. None of them have been in trouble with the law since since, their MRT training. So it's just really a great opportunity for students to have resources and guidance and then direct instruction on how to meet their individual behavior issues or concerns.
So good. Just a couple of follow-up questions. So similarly, Scott, you're using, you have your circles set up, and then you're using WhyTry and MRT as intervention within the circles. Because again, each circle, I hope people are catching the vision of this. Each circle has a purpose behind it, and then you're using WhyTry and MRT as intervention within certain circles to connect back to accomplish the purpose within that.
Exactly. So WhyTry is our tier 2 intervention, and then MRT is our tier 3.
Love it. All right, I mentioned we occasionally go a little bit over when the conversation's rich. I hope that's good with everybody. Gerald and Scott, are you good for a couple more minutes?
I'm good. I'm good. And Scott, man, amazing. And you're building futures, my man. And I appreciate you sharing that. It's so enlightening. Thank you so much.
It's a labor of love. I feel like I learn more and get more out of the relationships than they do. It's been a real blessing. I cannot complain. We have the best jobs in the world, I think.
I
Absolutely.
love it.
Absolutely.
Amen. And you can see how important the relationship piece is that both of you have highlighted. That type of change, that type of motivation doesn't happen without a really authentic relationship behind it. And I think that's part of the brilliance of the circles and the restorative practices models is it creates an environment, in my opinion, where really authentic relationships form, like in an organic way. It's not, it sounds kind of cheesy, but nobody wants to feel like they're an assignment. Like, I don't want to be somebody's relationship assignment. But when we exist kind of organically in these circles, they really are. They have an authentic feel to them. And I think it's just very, very powerful for both the students and the staff. So in the very limited time that we have, what I want to ask you to share is, we have so many different types of educators on here, and not every educator probably has the support behind them. Even if they're very passionate personally about this, they may not have the support to jump into like a full fidelity restorative model right now. And so my question for you is, based on your experience and your knowledge with the restorative model, like, what's a strategy that anybody listening to this that would come from this restorative model or the circles, the practice of circles? What's a strategy that you would pass on to anybody that that could take and utilize in their classroom or in their office, even if they're not able to do a full fidelity implementation right now? Let's go Scott first and then Gerald.
So I think the one thing you could do without having to do training is like the behavior flow chart. That was teacher created. And so when we had our professional learning community meetings or staff meetings, we talked about what behaviors and what students, because only a small percentage of students really cause a lot of the disruptions in class. And so just empowering the teachers to be able to communicate, these are the behaviors that I see, these are the students who I'm seeing that from. What can we do to address those issues, whether it's in the classroom, should it be addressed in the classroom, or what do you want me as the building leader to be able to address? So giving them a voice and listening to that voice and providing support can go a long way in addressing some of the behaviors.
Yeah, that behavior flow chart, I think, is a really, really intelligent, really simple way to approach it. As a reminder, we're going to put up contact information here shortly, and I'm sure Scott would be happy to answer any follow-up questions on that if any of you want to reach out to him. Gerald, what would you recommend? What strategy would you pass along to somebody that's just looking for something to utilize?
I just shared the handout number 10 that is included in the curriculum that I shared earlier. And they're called effective statements. Effective statement sentence stems. This is something that every educator can utilize right away. And it's a relationship building strategy. You can find these online. I see some hearts coming through. So hopefully a lot of our educators that are listening maybe already aware of what effective statements are. I go to them all the time. It's exciting in the hallway. Teachers use them in the classroom. You could, let them know that, when you start out with an I statement, I am so proud to see you here today. We missed you yesterday. And that's a student that may have chronic absenteeism, and you're still giving them a I statement. And, when you're not happy with what they're doing, you can say something like, I'm upset that you continue to distract our class lesson. You have so much to offer. So can you help me help you so we can get back on track and maybe share some of the talents that you can go into whatever. There's a list of them here that we provide to our audience when they attend the training. And so I just wanted to share that. I won't go through all of them, but again, you can find these online. They're everywhere, and they are very, very productive. And so I wanted to share that, and it's very easy. You don't need training for this. You can take it away and go ahead and utilize these in the classroom right now.
I love it, Gerald. It's really smart. There's a great saying. I remember in grad school learning this when we were working on trying to avoid like our own projection into counseling sessions. And one of my professors would always say, under stress, we regress. And so in these stressful situations, it's easy to like revert back to a more juvenile, less filtered version of ourselves, at least for me, me speaking directly. And so those effective statements are nice just to have like memorized on hand, because then you have a simple and a safe go-to, even in a very outrageous or a very stressful or a very difficult situation. We don't have to revert back to this other version of ourselves and be completely reactive. We can have something that we know is safe, ready to go, and simple, ready to go, that will be appropriate in the situation. So I think it's really wise. Both of your strategies, behavior flow charts, and effective statements. People are getting really well fed today. This is awesome. So we're out of time. But I want to hit you both up with one last question. And while you respond to the question, I'm going to put up the contact information that I promised up here on the, here we go, on the share. And the question that I want to conclude with is this. What is giving you hope in education right now? We're there, right? I feel very fortunate to be able to train educators throughout the country, and educators are feeling kind of beat up right now. So let's end on this has been such a great positive approach. Let's end on a great positive note. Give us something that's giving you hope in education right now. Let's go Gerald first and then Scott.
Absolutely. What a great question. I retired as a school social worker after 31 years. And I still had that fire burning in my bones to say, I'm not done yet. And to be able to share what I shared with you today is a testament to say, you know what? I'm in the building. I still want to be able to help students to develop skills to take with them, similar to what Scott's two young men stated in their videos, skills that they could be successful in. And I just felt that I'm not done yet. And no matter what happens in our world today, in our society today, I want to go into those buildings. I want to get in front of educators. I want to get in front of students. I need for them to see my fire burning. And it's so exciting to be able to do that every single day. And so that's what keeps me going. It's a razor sharp tunnel, and I don't deviate. If I let all that negativity come in from me about restorative practices or about about politics or whatever is happening out there, we just got to go straight forward, put one foot in front of the other, and keep helping our kids. And that's what keeps me going every single day. So I wanted to share that with everyone.
Amen. Scott, what you got?
Yes, for me, it's the students, those students and those testimonials. When you see them 5 or 10 years later, or the student that I show the pyramid of the present with. I run into her grandmother and she tells me that, hey, because of that program, our granddaughter's been able to graduate college. She's drug free for years. She has a family now. She's married. She's not engaged or involved in illegal activities. When you hear those types of things, and then the students that I have this current year, when you see those successes, it's just really hard to not want to be a part of that. So my students, my staff successes, those things keep me going because it's just so rewarding and fulfilling.
I love it. I agree. Big amen to that as well. I'll answer my own question as well. For me, it's absolutely the educators. It's the people that I feel fortunate enough to rub shoulders with. I get really inspired by the students, but of late, it's been the educators. I'll use a word that I really believe in. Maybe a lot of educators don't necessarily think of themselves in these terms, but I think educators are really brave, and we go into very difficult situations, sometimes even putting ourselves in harm's way, and we do it out of this love, but also this duty and calling to help these students and these children and these youth. And it's such a benevolent purpose, and the educators keep showing up. And even right now, I know a lot are feeling very beat up with challenges in their various communities and other challenges and uncertainty around things, and we just keep showing up and doing the work. And so thank you. You give me hope. And I feel really proud to be part of this community. Thank you. Huge thank you to our panelists. Give Gerald and Scott a big round of applause. This was really, really great, really rich information. Gerald, I think you've got a training coming up. Do you want to plug that real quick?
Yeah, can I put those couple slides up real quick,
You bet.
if you don't mind?
You
And I'll
bet.
share that and we'll close. But I wanted to um, let everybody know that if they're interested, again, what we just talked about today is going to be a 2-day training. It's virtual. It's going to be on June 5th and June 6th from 8 o'clock to 1:30 for those 2 days. It's the Summer Academy on Restorative Practices. We're going to provide detailed lessons, detailed trainings for every topic that we talked about today. Everyone will walk away with the entire 200 and some odd page curriculum, written curriculum, as well as the PowerPoint slides, as well as the handouts. There's about 29 of those for the entire curriculum. So we're excited. People can register on our website. And they go on the QR code there and register if they're interested. Contact us if they have any other questions. But we really want to share what we've had success with, and we're excited to do so. So thanks for allowing us to share. Appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Love helping get the word out. Hey, thank you, everybody.
Jason, is there any way I could share my contact information if anyone had any more questions about MRT or the implementation? Because I know that you could do it, during school, after school. And also, if anyone's interested in going to Branson, Missouri on March 27th, I will be presenting there. But I would like to leave my contact information if anyone else is interested in MRT and a little bit more in-depth understanding of what that would look like.
Absolutely. If you want to throw it in the chat, go for it, Scott. And
All
then
right.
I will put up a slide with everybody's contact information on it one last time. And I'm going to play us out with a little music with that to get us going. Outstanding job. You both did phenomenal. Scott, do you want me to share that? You just sent that to me. Do you want me to share all of that information with everyone?
Yes, please. Sorry about that. Yes.
No, no worries. I'm going to put that up. There we go. Oh, thought I was. Okay, one more try. There we go. All right, in the chat, we've got Scott's information there, including his email address that I've got up. Hey, thank you so much, everybody. This was an absolute treat. Did not disappoint.